Hey guys, this is going to be another quick Linux command video. Check the link in the description for more info and for copy and paste examples. The Linux vmstat command reports info about processes, memory, paging, block I/O, traps, disks, and CPU activity. The default behavior is to give you averages since boot, and then it's going to continuously just printing out, go ahead and just print out reports for a repeated sampling period. Now, some of the options will just give you, a single dump of information. It'll just, return information once, while as a lot of the options will just repeatedly print out reports. So we'll show you how that works in just a second. Now, some options may require root access. It's not supposed to, though. Now, any case, so basic usage, you can just say vmstat like this, and it just shows you the averages of these values since boot. Now, if you want it to report that every 1 second, you could go like this, and it's going to continuously report, print out a new report or a new line, every 1 second, right? Now, if you want to do every 2 seconds, you can do 2 like this. So this is the period that it's going to, it's the delay between reports, or the period that's going to be covering, right? Now, notice how this first line here is the, these are the values since boot, and then each of these, subsequent reports is just the value for that time, for that interval, right? Now, this is going to give you the interval time, and then the second value is going to be the number of times it should repeat for. So maybe you only want it to do 2. It will give you 2 lines like that, right? And then it's going to stop. You could also tell it to do 8, and then it's going to repeat 8 times, right? So you can control, the frequency and the total number of reports. So if you want stats for a partition, so another example I wanted to show you is you could, for example, say vmstat-p dev sda1, and you can say like 1, 2, right? Like this. So specify a partition and get some stats for just that partition, right? And maybe you do something like this just to give you a better example. This is basically what it's going to look like. So there are some options can repeat, will repeatedly display stats, and some will not repeat. So I'm real quick just going to show you the ones that do not repeat. So you can display info about forks. So the number of forks since boot, -f, and the long version would be, dash forks, but I'm generally just going to show you the short version of every option. So forks, that many forks since boot. So this is the number of forks since boot. Can't think of a reason why you'd want to use that, but I'm sure there are cases. Now, if you want to display a table of various event counters, and memory statistics, you can just do a -s for stats, and it gives you this nice little table of statistics, like total memory, free memory, caches, swap, stolen CPU ticks, soft IRQ CPU ticks, things like that, right? A bunch of stats. That's nice to be able to access that stuff. Now you could also do a capital D for disk. So basically report a summary of statistics about disk activity. So there you go, a bunch of disk stats right here, disk activity stats. Right now, the other thing you can do, dash capital V for version info, and then it's going to exit. This tells us that this is the vmstat version from procs ps-ng. So this is different from like iostat or mpstat. Those are part of the sysstat package. vmstat is part of the proc ps-ng package, this particular version. So that's worth noting. Let's see, what else do we want to cover here? So, and obviously a -h for help on all the different options that you might want to use. Also check the link in the description for common options, and check the man page for a ton of details. So let's see, what else do we want to cover? Okay, so the ones that can repeat, you can do -m for slab mode, and it gives you information about slabs. And if we had specified the number of times to repeat, like 1, or that specify the interval at least, it's going to repeat a bunch of times. So if you want to change that to, so that's slab mode, you can do D for disk mode, reports disk statistics. So disk mode, and this is just the default mode, right? So this gives you memory stuff and some stuff about, yeah, basically a bunch of stuff, but disk mode gives you a bunch of disk info. What else? So you can get repeatable disk info like that, and let's see, partition mode. So instead of just actual disks, like notice we have SDF up here. If you do partition mode, hold on, I believe you actually, I haven't actually used this option before, but let's see how this works. SDF. All right, so it looks like what I'm doing wrong is I have to specify the partition that I want them for, not the disk. So it's not going to display all the partitions on a disk in one shot. So you can do this. So for basically dev SDF1, so that partition, so the first partition on disk SDF, and we can just view stats for that, right? So you could also do like partition number 3 on this disk and view the stats for that. So there's that, and let's see here, what else? So let's say Control C here, and let's say if you want to display active and inactive memory, and some of these, like this one, for example, requires kernel version 2.5.41. So some of these have kernel version restrictions. Anyways, dash P for partition, right? Dash A for active and inactive memory. So you can repeat. So some memory related stuff, and this is going to be let's see how this is different from the default output. So yeah, this is basically the same thing as default output. And let's see, dash N for the header only rather than once periodically. So let's say if you did vmstat1 and repeated this a bunch of times, eventually it's going to repeat the header. See how you only see the header at the top? Once this repeats a certain number of times, you are going to see the header repeat again. And I'm not sure if I should actually wait for this in the video, but let's give it a shot. Yeah, see, header is repeating down here, right in the middle, just so you can always look. You don't have to scroll up too far to see what each field is. Now, if you wanted to, we could say dash N, and we're not going to wait, because this way it's just never going to show that. I'm not going to wait for that everything to scroll by, but that's something to be aware of. And what else? We have, so you can also specify the unit with the dash S. I'm not going to, dash S, so you can specify units. So we're going to go ahead and let's give that a shot. Okay. All right, so it looks like we need K or M, so we can do K or M. And yeah, so these are the options that it lets you use. Apparently you can't use G. All right, anyways, so append a timestamp to each line. So if you want to do that, you can say dash T, and see here at the end we have timestamps. So that's great and everything. Now, let's see here, wide output mode in case output doesn't fit. So you can actually say dash W. So anyways, there's that. Now there's a Y before. If you specify a Y like this, you can omit the first report with statistics since boot. So I think this actually is not working on this version. I imagine that this was, I think, from looking into it, this was the dash Y option is recently introduced in recent versions. I have not looked into whether or not that's the case, but if I were on a more updated version of the OS, I believe I would likely be able to use that. So, in any case, not going to dig into that further today, but let's continue on. So, from W-Y. All right, so let's talk about some of the fields for VM mode. So let's say if we did 1 and 3, just give us 3 quick reports here. Now, understanding the fields is one of the more important things to be able to do, so let's just jump right into it. Now, R is the number of runnable processes and running or waiting for runtime. And B is going to be the number of processes blocked waiting for I/O to complete. So nothing running at the moment, so yeah, just zeros for those, right? So let's run this for a little bit longer just to see if we get better results, more interesting results. And yeah, see, some of them, sometimes a process becomes runnable. And here we have 2, 1 over here. Anyways, so that's all fine and great. Now, SWPD is the amount of swap memory used. Free is the amount of idle memory not being used, and buff is going to be the amount of memory used for buffers, and cache is going to be the amount of memory used as a cache. So generally, I think you should be able to, anything buffered or cached should be usable for regular memory usage. So it could be freed up. Now, let's see here. So SI under swap, SI is going to be the amount of memory swapped in from disk. And SO is the amount of memory swapped to disk. So SI and SO, and let's see here, these do not look like they line up very nicely, but nothing swapped in or swapped out. And you gotta love how these just don't align properly. So SI would be this column, SO is this column, and BI would have to be this column. So, BI is this column. So BI is kilobytes received from a block device, and BO is kilobytes sent to a block device. So yeah, there's these. Then there's, let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, so N and CS right here. So these values, so N is the number of interrupts per second, including the clock, and CS is the number of context switches per second. So kind of useful to be able to see, all right, let's see, how do these line up? This guy's here, BO. So interrupts and context switches. So you can see there's a bunch of context switches going on. So you can see how much it's swapping between different things. And let's see here. So US is going, so we have US, SY, ID, WA, and ST for CPU stats. So yeah, so US is the time spent running non-kernel code. So that's user time, including nice time. Now SY is going to be time spent running kernel code, or that's system time, right? So ID is time spent idle, and prior to Linux 2.5.41, it included idle. Yeah, so it this included I/O wait time, right, prior to that kernel version. Now WA was so WA is the time spent waiting for I/O, and prior to kernel version 2.5.4.1, it included idle. So ST is going to be time stolen from the virtual machine, and this would have been unknown prior to kernel version 2.6.11, right? And GU is the time spent running KVM guest code, which I guess is not displayed here, but I documented that anyways. And that, yeah, so anyways, that is, so that's those fields right here. So after this, we're going to check. So let's try disk mode. So -D for disk mode. going to see some disk info here. I'm going to hit Control C because I don't want to wait for that many. All right, so see reads, writes, and I/O in the actual disk, right? Now let's scroll up so we can actually see values from real disks in here. Now, let's see, disk mode. So total is going to be the total reads completed successfully. Merged is going to be grouped reads resulting in one I/O. And then sectors is going to be, sectors read successfully, and MS is going to be milliseconds spent reading. Now, under writes, you're going to have total, so total writes completed successfully, merged, grouped writes resulting in one I/O, and sectors written successfully. That's what sectors is. Then you have MS, milliseconds spent writing. So basically the same as reads, except it's writes instead of reads, right? Now for I/O, you have cur for current. So basically these two columns, cur and sec. So cur is IOs in progress. So I guess that's why they say cur for current. Now S is seconds spent for IO. So anyways, there's that. And let's look at disk partition mode. So you do D, P, SDF1, and let's see how that works. All right, so I hit Control C here. Now, for disk partition mode, you're going to see reads. That's a total number of reads issued for this partition. And then read sectors is total read sectors for the partition. Writes is going to be total number of writes issued for this partition. And requested writes is the total number of write requests made for the partition. Now, let's see, slab mode. So slab mode gives you a ton of output. Let's see, slab mode M, and let's do this twice. So slab mode. Yeah, so vmstat-m12, so it's going to give us a couple reports, and interestingly, this is a ton of info. You would think it only dumps it once, but this is actually a repeating thing. So this will repeat as many times as you specified, and so I'm going to start at the top like this, right? So you can actually see the top without having to scroll forever. With this much output, it's amazing that it is a repeating command, but it is. So in slab mode, you are going to have a cache. So that's the cache name. So you have all these caches. And then for num, that is the so num is the number of currently active objects. Total is the total number of available objects. Size is going to be the size of each object, and pages is the number of pages with at least one active object. So that's what all of those fields are. And yeah, so this whole thing is based off of proxng version 4.0.2. So I was originally testing this out on a Debian system. So I am not on a Debian system now. So let's see, version. So I'm on an older Ubuntu system, version 3.3.17. So yeah, this would explain some slight differences from what I documented and what I'm actually showing you on the video. Recording this video on an Ubuntu system, I did a lot of the documentation and stuff on a Debian system. So there's some differences there, just to be aware of. So the version makes a difference. And that's about everything I wanted to show you about the vmstat command. So this is kind of a little bit long and a lot of stuff you may or may not want to hear about. We could go into more detail, but we could also do a shorter version of this video just showing the absolute essentials as well. So depending on what it's what people seem to like, I may have a follow-up video for this specific command, but for now I'm trying to get a video out for every command I've done. But that's about it for vmstat for today. Remember, check the links in the description for more info. Hit the subscribe button for more useful content like this. We also have a ton of other more interesting content covering things like coding, hardware, software, servers, Raspberry Pis, 3D printing, and a whole lot more. Hopefully you found this useful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.